for joining me for another episode. My name is Leo Dion. Today I'm joined by Joe Fabisevich. Joe, thank you so much for coming back on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really happy to be here.
For folks who don't remember, what episode were you on? You talked about like the stuff you had worked on a former company, probably, and dealing with that. So, I'm really excited about your new app you're going to be talking about today. I'll let you go ahead and take it away and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I think the last time that I was here, we actually talked about like building apps like at scale with I worked at
That's what I
Twitter.
thought. Okay. I knew it was
Yeah,
something big, and important. So, yeah,
yeah,
awesome.
I like to think so. Um, yeah, now I've been a iOS developer for almost 15 years. The last place that I did work was at Twitter back when that existed. Obviously now it's my ex. But when I was there, I worked on the societal health team, which was focused on minimizing misinformation, disinformation, abuse, harassment, really focusing on like improving the discourse on Twitter and civic integrity. So like election related things was what I spent a lot of 2020 working on, unsurprisingly. Before that, I have a long history of working at startups. I worked at TimeHop and Bitly and Teachable and a whole bunch of companies that were kind of glued into the social fabric of apps and the web in the 2010s. And now I do something completely different. I build personal, playful productivity apps as an indie developer at my company, Red Panda Club. And the latest app that I worked on is, as you can see in the hat, Plinky.
Nice. I like it. Yeah. So today, you came up to me, was it a couple weeks ago, and was like, "I want to talk about this app. This app is awesome." And yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. Explain Plinky and where the idea came from.
Yeah, I don't want to oversell it and say it's awesome, but if you say it, it's different. So I'm okay with that. Um, I will say that Plinky is a bit of a love story in two parts. The first is that I love links. I've tried out every single app that helps you read later. Like I've used Pocket and Instapaper for years. I tried out every archiving app like Pinboard or Raindrop or really back in the day Delicious, which all of these apps are kind of based on. And I've even tried saving links and notes or reminders or keeping a bunch of browser tabs open. There is no organizational system that has ever like fully worked for me. Only a few of these have even stood the test of time to stay on my phone. But I really like them, and they're all great in their own way for very specific use cases, whether you're an archivist or a person who loves to read. Um, and yeah, I mean, I love pretty much everything about links. So uh, that was the first part. The second part was that I love my fiance, my soon-to-be wife in 2 weeks, Colleen. Um, and when we first started dating, she discovered how much I love links. We had a open relationship, me, her, and links. Um, and I'm very grateful that she found that to be like an endearing trait. When we first started dating, I would ask her, is it okay if I send you some links during the day? I knew she would be busy at work, and she said it was fine. But um, she was wrong. While she loved that I was thinking of her and sharing interesting articles or recipes to cook together or cute animal photos, she pretty quickly found it like distracting to have her phone buzzing during the day. I have my own workflows around making sure that Do Not Disturb is on and things like that. But instead, she suggested that we save the links for later so we could look at them together at night. And that's when I started working on a small project. I'm an app developer. I wanted a home for my links, and that app would become Blinky. Um, it first was just kind of like for the two of us, and then I started to show the app to people, and they loved it. They were all saving links. They were having the same problems that I was having of never finding an app that fit their workflow, and they kept telling me that they wanted an app that made it so simple to save links. With Plinky, it's just one tap. Like you open the share extension, or you're using your browser like Chrome or Firefox or Safari. You could be on your Mac. You could be using integrations like Zapier. Basically, any way to make it easy to save a link, I wanted to build, and that fit the use case that I had, which was I just want my links like a permanent archive, but I also want tools to help me reference them later. We can get into that a little more, but like a few months later, I left my job at Twitter. I was having health issues, but also for the longest time, I've always wanted to build my own apps. I wanted to be an indie app developer, and I started Red Panda Club, which is the indie app company that I have, and I decided that I wanted to build Plinky. So I started working on it, and to this day, Colleen and I use it every day. It became an essential tool in our lives, but also a ritual. Like Colleen saves cute videos of red pandas for me, and I save activities that we could do next weekend, and every night the two of us come together. We share the links that we save for each other. We call it Plink time. We lay in bed and share the links that we've shown each other.
How do you share your links through Plinky? Because I had assumed that you just have like an organization for your own links. Can you make those public?
Not yet. So that is when I say we share our links, I mean we literally lay in bed and share the
Yeah,
links that
okay,
we save
okay.
for each other.
That's what I thought.
But that is actually one of the top feature requests is the ability to have shared folders, and it was something I really wanted to build into 1.0. But
Okay.
Colleen is a product marketer and was just kind of like 1.0, get 1.0 out there. And
Yeah.
over time, I was like, you know what? Maybe the app doesn't have to do everything on launch day. And
Yeah.
much to my surprise, people, they keep asking for stuff like that, and I will absolutely build it. But it's nice that they are still really using and enjoying the app even without that feature.
Right, right. So, what were some of the design and develop? Well, let's start with design decisions about how you want it to look. What were some early on decisions that you made that you like knew was the right direction for the app?
Yes, I mean, like I said, I'm trying to build playful, fun apps, and I personally am really drawn to color and gradients and good, clean typography. I really, there's something to be said about Apple's design. It's really like simple, straightforward, and delightful in a lot of ways. But it's also every app feels the same.
Right.
And SwiftUI especially gives you this like toolkit to build really good stock apps. It gives you a lot of room to expand and customize what you want to build. But a lot of people stick to the basics. But I really wanted the app to feel, like the way that we used to feel about apps back in the day when it wasn't just.
I was just going to say that's one of the first things I noticed when I was using the app is I love how playful it is and I love the color palette and everything. Like it doesn't look like every other app.
Thank you. Yeah,
In a good way.
spent.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, actually. There. No, I wanted the app to feel unique, and I spent, hours agonizing over every color, every icon, every font choice, even if fonts are the hardest thing in design. But I really like if you notice it uses SF rounded because the rounded essence of it is just kind of like fits in nicely with the buttons that
Right.
every button has a little push down effect and haptics and there's lots of little sounds in the app. And so that was just a conscious choice where I said, if I'm going to use this app every single day, it better be nice and it better be something that I enjoy using. And I think that a lot of like people design apps to be very functional these days. I personally wanted to go the extra mile and say, like, if I'm going to make this for myself, but I'm also going to make it for everyone else, it's not for everyone. Like, I've had a few people who said, like, I want it to be blander, which is like a very reasonable choice. But I fully understand that they're used to what they're used to.
Right.
It's just like art, though. People look at a painting, like the painting behind me, and say, that's not something that I'm into, but, I'm a person, and this is something that I'm into.
Right. Right.
And I'm actually also building Plinky to be customizable enough that you can choose, the colors, or you can choose the layouts, or you can choose a lot of things that make Plinky a home for your app, which is also a design decision because I have to make sure that the app is not only, functional in a way that fits my needs, but is something that anyone can use, including my mom. It has to be simple enough for my mom to use, but also powerful and nerdy enough for like programmers to build their own interesting workflows the way that I was trying to build workflows with all these tools that I'd had before.
Yeah. Did you work on all this by yourself?
Yeah, I would say I would give it like, a 99%. Of course, I've asked people for help. I've been like,
Yeah.
hey, what do you think of this color? Or what do you think of that? I also had a really large beta group, people giving me feedback. So that was incredibly helpful. But the design and development almost exclusively by myself. And, there are a few people who I give credit, but yeah.
What was the biggest development challenge you ran into building this app?
I think probably just generally speaking, back-end development.
Okay.
I am not a server developer by trade.
Okay.
But I set out to build this. A lot of people ask me why I didn't use iCloud. And the main reason is to build like the integrations layer that allows people to save links to Plinky.
Right.
Building it on top of iCloud is just kind of like a no man's land. I think that what I wanted to do was also be able to make sure that I could provide adequate support, and debugging people's iCloud databases is just a bit of a nightmare. So I
Yeah,
decided to go the other route and build my own layer with Vapor.
yeah. How did you like that experience?
I would say it was overall pretty positive. I think
Okay.
that there are a few things that I would improve. I do not love Fluent, the ORM. It's good, it's functional, but it has just some warts that I ran into. What I will say is that the Discord community, the Vapor community, is fantastic. They,
Hmm.
are willing to debug very individual specific problems, and so I never felt like I was alone. And community was a big part of building Plinky in general.
Um, what database did you actually use underneath?
It's Postgres on the back end, and
Okay.
on the client, everything is saved in a library that I developed called Boutique. Boutique is basically offline persistence for your app in 3 lines of code, and it sticks to a very like it feels very at home on Apple platforms. It's very like Swift UI. Everywhere that you would use at state in Swift UI, you instead use at stored or at store, and that's it. Like you just replace it, and all of your data is cached offline as long as you use the API.
So speaking of boutique, what made you want to use your own library as opposed to using something like Core Data or Swift Data?
Yeah, at the time, Swift data didn't exist, so that was one of the reasons that I decided to build Boutique in the first place. Um, I've never really loved using Core Data. I found it a little cumbersome, and Swift Data is a much better API, but at the end of the day, it's basically Core Data, especially if you have to do anything outside of what Swift Data offers. And so I really just found it like, first of all, it was a good challenge to say, like, can I finally build this library that I've been wanting to build for a long time, which is you can drop it in and get free offline persistence for your app. And it was actually funny enough, the second commit to Plinky's code base was something to the extent of built an offline storage layer. And then over time, I spent probably like 3 or 4 months working on it full time to open source it. And then I found that people loved it. They like I think I worked on it for about a month and a half. People were like, "This is so cool." And then I created this layer called the storage engine, which is basically like adapters you can plug in. So the first version was built on files, the second version was built on SQLite, and then other people have actually built their own adapters to match their own like database needs. You can even
Okay.
build an adapter for core data if you really wanted to. It's just a protocol you conform to, and then your app has in basically 3 lines of code offline persistence, but with an API that just resembles Swift UI. It doesn't mean you never have to think about I'm writing to a database. You just think I'm writing this property, and that's it. Everything
And
works.
no macros to deal with, so you have that as a benefit too.
No,
Yeah.
though that may change over time because property wrappers and macros don't play great together,
Right.
and
That
I
is true.
need to add verbal support.
Um, are you? What's your like? Are you like anti ORMs or like what's your kind of? Do you mind using ORMs or are you more like I want to write closer to the metal, so to speak?
No, I'll admit I'm like a pretty lazy developer, at least in the
Okay.
context of like, I really like what ORMs do because I want to be thinking in the language that I'm writing in.
Hmm.
SQL is great, but I will admit that every time I have to write SQL, I basically have to go look up what I have to do. And so being able to write Swift as opposed to writing SQL is a nice added benefit for me.
Right.
The things that I don't like are when you ask the ORM to do something and then it has like a some contextual issue. So I remember this came up when I was using Fluent. I was trying to update a row, but not update its updated at, or vice versa, be able to update the
Oh,
updated at.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I basically had this column that's like most recently used when, and
Okay.
the problem was that I needed to have a separate data. I need to have separate data for that, but it would update the updated at, which would resort the order that the item was sorted for users. And it's not like a conventional problem, but I would like to be able to express it in an ORM.
Right. 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 That makes total sense. Um, what kind of So I'm assuming this is all for the latest OSs like iOS 17 and stuff. Like, were there any issues with like Swift UI, especially with the design you wanted to do?
Design wise, not really. The only thing, the app is like 99% Swift UI. It's
Hmm.
great. I love it. Um, there's only one little gotcha with UIKit, which is text input. There was no way I can get text fields to work on a sheet that was presented as a presentation to taunt without weird animation hitches everywhere. And it turns out this is
Interesting.
just a widespread issue. Everyone who ever tries to do this has the same problem as me. I tried every single workaround possible, but the only answer at the end of the day is to drop into UI text field. Even that is not perfect, but it's good enough.
What is so one of my favorite things is full stack Swift development. Did you, what did you learn as far as a good workflow for working on the server and the client at the same time? Through Xcode, I would assume.
Yeah, I use Xcode for both. Um, I think the simplest tip that is not necessarily obvious is have one project. So I have one project, and the server code base is just a Swift package.
Yeah.
That workflow of being able to hit Command R and then I have Command Shift D mapped to switch between the Swift server app and Plinky. So it's just like constantly being Command Shift D, Command R, Command Shift D, Command R, and that improves efficiency so much. Just one mono repo, one folder. I did have to. I remember I had to make some slight changes for the build pack because I use Heroku for the server
Okay.
to deploy in a non-root directory. But other than that, it's just been so smooth.
Um, was there any friction when it came to, so besides the Heroku part, was there any other friction you ran into building a full stack Swift app?
I think the biggest problem, and one that is 95% solved, and I still have to fix it actually, is DTOs.
Okay.
I plan to iterate the API over time. And so the model objects that come back, because I am persisting everything, imagine there's like a model for a link.
Yeah.
And in this version of the link, you have like 10 properties. I'm adding an 11th property for reminders, which is the next feature that I'm going to be building. I need to be able to convert the model version with reminders support into a non-reminder support for old clients,
Okay.
which means that there has to be some sort of like transformation layer in between.
Right.
I
Right.
I knew that. I've considered it. It's something I still need to do, but it does add a little bit of like cruft to where before it was just like perfectly beautiful and just you send the same model client to server, server to client, no versioning. It's all great. Now that it's out of beta, I have to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so let's talk about the marketing side of it. What did you learn going through this whole process when it came to getting this app ready to market?
Yeah, my number one piece of advice would be to marry a product marketer. That really helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I would imagine that would help, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. No, I mean, and a gigantic thank you to my fiance Colleen, who uh, spent a lot of free time working on a go-to-market strategy. And no matter how much she says that it was a fun project that she got to do in her spare time, I still just appreciate it immensely. Um, I think the first thing was doing user research, like doing user interviews, was incredibly helpful in figuring out how to position Plinky because I look at the app and I look at it to satiate my needs. One of the most common use cases that people told me about was they're scrolling social media like Twitter or I guess not Twitter, but they're scrolling Threads
Mastodon.
or Mastodon or wherever they are, and they're coming across a whole bunch of articles that they want to read, but they don't want to read them now, but they just need a basically like a transient place for them, a temporary inbox. And that's actually a great way to use Plinky because it's one click to do so. And so if I hadn't actually talked to users, I would have imagined that what they were looking for was a place to really read those articles, like, sit down on their couch with an app like Pocket or Instapaper.
Yeah,
But they were just like, no, I mean, like, some people do want an offline reader mode, and that's one of the things that I'm working on. But really, just the idea of like having an inbox for their links was good enough for them. So that made me feel a lot more confident about launching a 1.0 without, an offline reading experience.
yeah.
Um, that those user research sessions helped a ton. Um, I also found that user onboarding it doesn't just stop. It's not just in the app. It doesn't stop once the user opens the app for the first time. I made sure to take advantage of email as a way
Yeah.
to send 4 or 5 emails as you are going through and learning about Plinky. It tells you about Plinky. It teaches you about what features it offers. It helps you find the browser extensions that you will use to actually save links on your computer. So I had them on the initial onboarding in the app, but the place that you don't need them is in the app. So they're
Right.
still
Right.
in the app, but they don't need to be a part of the onboarding. So finding this user experience, onboarding is a part of the user experience, and it doesn't only happen in the app. It's just a
Yep.
huge lesson that I took away.
Yeah.
And what was really, I think, like the third biggest lesson for me was test your subscriptions before you launch to the App Store, or test your subscriptions before you launch publicly. Because I
Okay.
ran into a few little bugs. There used to be a way to test with a promo code. You would send a promo code to a user and say, "Can you go download my app?" That's currently broken. So I actually had to launch the app a few days early, test out subscriptions, fix a bug or two. Then I soft launched at Deep Dish Swift, where we were both at.
Yeah.
And that was actually a bit of chaos because I soft launched and I started watching how users were going through the onboarding, and I realized they're getting completely lost. I had this very like refined onboarding that was an interactive experience, and it was just too much. I pared it down to its minimum, like the essential basics. And what the onboarding did after that was show you how to set up the share extension and explain to you what you want to be doing here. And that was it. By doing that, I was able to basically, I coded that up in about 12 hours while watching talks. Apologies to any of the speakers whose talks I wasn't paying attention to. Uh,
You had a lot
and
on your mind.
yeah, no, it was a lot. And then when I launched, the number one compliment I got on launch day was, "Wow, this onboarding is amazing." And I was just like, "Thank God,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
could have gone so poorly."
Why did the promo code stuff not work? Was it something related to Swift UI or just something you forgot about? No. Okay.
I talked to someone at the on the App Store team, or like at the on who works on StoreKit. And he was like, "Oh, that should work. It's a bug. Do you want to file a radar?" And I was like, "If I already launched it, will the radar help?" And he said, "Nope." And I said, "Great, then no, I don't want to file a radar."
Yeah. Right. Um, One of the things you mentioned was emails. How are you? How do you have that set up? How's that working? Like, do you have like a newsletter or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have an email list in a service called Email Octopus. It's a bit of an
Okay.
indie focused email platform. It's not as powerful as something like MailChimp in terms of features,
Okay.
but it gets the job done, has campaigns and templates and lists and all that stuff. So I
Is
was
that
keeping
free?
track. No, I think it's might be free for a small tier, but it's pretty much like $10 a month for 1,000, or like I think it
Okay.
goes up in increments of $6 or something like that. It's
Okay.
it's inexpensive, and I would
Yeah.
say it's recommended.
Okay.
I had a list of people who were on the wait list, and that was about 400 or 500 people that I could reach after Plinky launched to say, "Good news, the app is out there." I've been collecting that since basically November 2022
Yep.
when I launched the public beta, and that was really helpful to have. And the workflow is generally like user signs up, subscribe them to Email Octopus, then get them through the onboarding set of emails. And I am actually going to be launching like a little website slash newsletter called Links You'll Love sometime next month.
Okay.
And it's basically just like my own personal collection of links that I come across, and 4 links and 4 kind of funny posts from across the internet. Nothing too, uh, a lot of newsletters are like how to become the best product marketer, or how to how to be the entrepreneur you've always wanted to be. And this is just like in an age where everything is getting summarized by AI, I would just like to help people find nice things to read in a very human-like way, and just curated links in your inbox. So that will also go through Email Octopus as well.
Okay. Um, yeah. I'm looking for an email service, so I'm just curious what you ended up using. So,
I would
uh,
also recommend buttondown.email. That's a friend runs it, but it's a service that everyone is kind of like caught onto and is saying like they love it.
okay.
Just would highly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Let's talk about Dub Dub first, I guess, because that's more immediate, I would say. Um, are you are you getting married during Dub Dub or
No,
is
I'm
that
getting
before?
married a few days before Dub Dub.
Okay.
Thank God.
Okay, I was gonna say. Um, so I want to ask specifically when it comes to Plinky, if there's anything that you're looking for in from DubDub that you're hoping to help with the app, I guess.
Yeah,
I know
I
you
mean,
mentioned AI, so I don't know if that might be part of it too.
yeah, I think the AI story is so fuzzy with Apple. I
Yeah,
think I've been watching a lot of the open source work that they've done and projects that they put out for on-device machine learning, and it looks great. I'm very curious to see how they're going to productize it. If
yeah,
it's going to be an API that's available to developers, what will it be able to do? And I plan to build, just like every iOS developer wants to, features that are iOS 18 specific. So it's really up in the air how it will relate to Plinky.
yeah.
I know that this is a little controversial in the iOS community, but I've been helped a lot by AI in building Plinky. I think it's a dream for an indie developer. Um, for example, like I don't know TypeScript very well, but to build browser extensions, I really needed to build something in TypeScript or JavaScript.
Okay,
And I scoped out about 2 to 3 weeks of work to build out the browser extensions. And instead, what I did was I just paired with ChatGPT. I gave it like very specific guidelines, instructions, and told it what I wanted, and then iterated on it over and over and over again. By within about 2 hours, I had a fully working prototype. Within about 2 days, I had 3 browser extensions that supported all the features that I needed for saving links,
that's
and
awesome.
that's pretty wild. And
Yeah, yeah,
I very much expect something like that to be built into Xcode.
yeah.
I I have heard from people that Apple is working on stuff like this, and so I know that I find myself missing it when I'm working in Swift, and so I'm very hopeful for that.
Um, anything specific with AI you'd want to do with like Plinky as far as like summaries? I know we talked about summaries, but like, um, or any particular widget or thing you would want to plug into Plinky.
Yeah, I think summarization and auto tagging is probably two of the biggest things. So people have already asked, can I have links that get saved automatically get put into the right folder? So if you have a link from the New York Times or CNN or BBC, put it in a news folder. I
Okay.
would like to see if there's like on-device stuff that I can do with that. And I
Yeah.
suspect I will be able to. There's already a lot of good classification. It's just about if a user doesn't have much data. I'm trying to do this all in a privacy preserving way. How do I
Right.
figure out the best way to do this? And I think that there are some ways that I can. And also, I've seen a few reading apps try and go all in on AI. And I, for example, found a 10-year-old article that I had saved in, I won't mention the name of the app, but one app that added summaries recently. And it was an article about privacy violations and civil liberties and how, like, it was about Edward Snowden, basically, from,
Hmm.
a decade ago. And so I hit the summarize button and it said, it took a 10-page article and summarized it as the author cares a lot about civil liberties. And I was like, this is not
Very
great.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have told you that. So if I build a summarization feature, I want to be able to provide users the ability to really specify what kind of summaries do you want and do it in a manner that focuses on the user, not focuses on the fact that I added AI to the app.
So, what are for future plans for Plinky that you already have scoped out?
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot, and I'm really happy to say that a lot of the roadmap that I had in mind is in line with what people have been asking. You can actually vote on the roadmap in the app, and that's been a helpful guide to
What do you
knowing.
use for that, if you mind me asking?
Oh, it's called wishkit.io, I think.
Oh, it's Martin's. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Um, I added support for something in open source and then realized it was a paid product, and he was kind enough to give me 6 free months. So I'm using that at the moment. Um, but yeah, the first thing that people wanted was the ability to import their links from other services. I was surprised because there's two kinds of users. There's someone who is just getting started and says, I really like Plinky. I want to add some links to it, but I don't have any prior history. I was surprised with how many people are saying, like, I want to move from, I won't name competitors just because I don't want to be mean, but they're like, I want to move from this. This app is a little stale. This app, your app provides the same functionality. I want to try it out. And I am working on that today. Like after we hop off this call, I will get back to working on importing links. But the next few things that I'm really excited about right now, when you save a link, Plinky's share extension is just like, I don't know. I think it's really slick. It's just really quick. And once you save a link, it goes away, gets out of your face, as opposed to a lot of other apps which force you to like categorize a link or try and put it in the right place. There is the option for that. There's like an edit button that you can hit, but I want to give the user more control over that. So if they want to set a reminder or pin the link or add it to a folder in one tap, as opposed to going to this whole organizational flow where you edit the link, then I want that to be available. And it's because there are so many different kinds of people who have so many different kinds of workflows. That's what I'm building Plinky to fit, is this layer of customization that makes it your home for your links. So that's been highly requested, and I actually had about 80% of it built before I ship 1.0. It was a matter of prioritizing and saying like, I can launch that after. Then the next feature actually is timed reminders. So sometimes I save a link and I'm like, this is a thing I need to talk about with Colleen at 8 p.m. So I just want a little reminder that goes off and tells me, this is, the link, your link that you saved. Take a look at it right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And unsurprisingly, the number one request from people in this community is a native Mac app. So that's what I'm going to be looking into this summer. That way you can have your links everywhere. The iPad app does run on the Mac right now in, the very like M1, M2, M3 kind of way.
Okay.
But it's good enough, but it really doesn't meet my standards, especially given how much time and energy and effort I've put into making Plinky feel, I would say delightful.
Are you thinking SwiftUI native, or are you thinking Catalyst?
SwiftUI. That's one of the reasons that I built Plinky in SwiftUI, and so much of it is avoiding UIKit, is so I can transpose it onto the Mac pretty easily.
Okay. I do have a couple of technical questions for you, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So outside of Plinky, what are you looking forward to from DubDub?
Oh, I honestly don't know. I think I would say I've been so laser focused for the last 6 months. I also just don't know where Apple is going. And I don't mean that in a critical way. I think that every year they manage to create a theme that surprises and delights. And I just don't know what that's going to be this year, because all the talk has been AI.
Right. And then last year, we already had the big thing out last year that they already talked about. So it's like, with the glasses. So it's like, okay, like, I guess it could be AI. I mean, we've heard rumors of a partnership or something with OpenAI. So I don't know if that's going to be anything, but it seems a little bit strange that they'd do anything weeks from today.
I would like to put my prediction on the record. I have 3 classes of prediction. One is, if they have an enterprise partner, I think it's going to be Microsoft, because Microsoft owns the license to all of GPT-4 and all of the models that they create.
If OpenAI has an enterprise partnership, or Apple has an enterprise partnership?
Apple. I think that they will not. I don't expect them to go directly to OpenAI, because OpenAI goes down all the time. Like maybe I'll be wrong. Like I'm happy to be wrong about this, but I love ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
we did a whole episode with oh gosh, I forgot. But we talked about all the ways ChatGPT is super helpful. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about marketing, but I guess if you have a wife, you don't need ChatGPT to help you, or fiance, I should say. Yeah.
If you have a fiance, you don't need ChatGPT is my tagline.
Yeah, exactly. That should be the name of this episode. But yeah, I mean, that's always the thing I found super helpful with ChatGPT, as imperfect as it is helping me with marketing text. So the partnership thing is strange to me, because I would have thought that if anybody is going to do anything, any of the big FANG companies, whatever, is going to do anything with OpenAI, I thought it was going to be Microsoft, because Microsoft practically owns them in a lot of ways. But you're just saying Apple is going to just work with Microsoft directly through that.
I think it's either Microsoft or Google. I think OpenAI is my third choice for who I would depend on going forward for the online model, not the offline on your device model.
Right. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned in here is Swift 6. We had some really great talks about Swift 6 at Deep Dish. And it is my current, it's like literally what I'm working on before talking to you, is trying to get Bushel ready for Swift 6.
Yeah.
Have you already like enabled those flags to see how much work you have ahead of you, or what?
I think you can tell by my smile that answer is kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
did early on, and then I found myself getting strict concurrency warnings that didn't make sense. Some of them
Yeah.
made sense, some of them didn't. And what I decided was I'll leave it till the summer when things are more settled,
Yeah.
because so much was going to change between Swift 5.7, 5.8, 5.9 that I could be like Matt Masciotti and chase every change and be involved in the process. But practically speaking, I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to spend a good chunk of the summer just looking into like what I really need to do, especially for boutique. I that is very concurrency actor based, and I want to make sure that it doesn't lead to race conditions.
Hmm.
So I've enabled it in there. I only had like 9 warnings, which I find very suspicious.
Okay.
So that's why I'm like, I'm gonna wait and see when 9 turns into 90 what I need to do.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, and you mentioned on your notes here about vapor. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
think
gonna be
there's
a
a
really
lot of
tough
work
experiment.
behind the scenes to get it ready. So hopefully it doesn't affect those of us who just use it for implementation. But we'll see.
The nice thing
Um,
about Swift 6 is you can also stay in Swift 5 mode. So
great.
if
That's true.
you aren't ready, then you're not ready.
Yep. Anything else you want to talk about before we close out?
Uh, I don't think we're gonna solve Israel-Palestine, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was good to see you in person last week, and yeah, it was just great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was nice to chat, especially about the technical stuff. Now that I work for myself, it's I don't get to talk as much about it.
Yeah, you just have to talk about product marketing with your fiance. Sorry.
I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, it could be worse.
could be worse. Could be worse. Plinky
Yeah,
is a fascinating. It's a wonderful application. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Definitely
thank you.
give it a try, everyone, and try it out. It's fantastic. I love the color design and everything. So, yeah. And good luck to your big day coming up in a few weeks.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
I'm mostly on Threads these days. It's merge sort like the algorithm, MERGSORT. I also write a lot. If you go to mergesort.me, there's a whole bunch of links to my blog or my other blog or my other blog, too many blogs. And yeah, also one thing that I've just loved is the support emails I've gotten. Everyone has been super nice, and the fact that I'm a human being who's responded and with depth has led to a whole bunch of good conversations. So if you do use Plinky and you do have ideas or you do want to tell me literally anything, I'm here. I'm a real human being. I'm not AI. So I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
I am still trying to figure out what my plan is for Dub Dub since I will be there physically. So I will keep folks in the loop if you follow me on social media. I have to figure that out. But yeah, we'll do something for Dub Dub here on the show. And so look out in emails or social media for what my plan is for the recording. Hopefully you'll figure out a way to have Peter back on to talk about the State of the Union and stuff. So be on the lookout for that. You can follow me on Twitter at LeoGDion, Mastodon at LeoGDion at C.im. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at brightdigit.com. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing everybody at Dub Dub. Bye.